Wrath of the Lich King is upon us, and it's time to answer the question, what's the best healer in Wrath of the Lich King Classic? The answer is more complicated than you think. I'm going to rank every single healer on the best heals per second, the best raid utility. We're going to figure out what the very best healer in Wrath of the Lich King is.
You are not prepared!
What's up, pumpers? Jerome here, and today we're going to be talking about the very best healers in Wrath of the Lich King. Which classes pump the highest heals? Which classes bring the most to the raids? I'm going to cover absolutely everything, so let's get right into it. Alright, so in this healer tier list, we're going to be ranking specs from the S rank all the way down to the C rank. Only the very strongest specs will get the S rating, while the weakest possible specs will get the C rating. Up first, we have Restoration Druid. Resto Druids pump out insane heal over time damage. They've got their rejuvenation and their new wild growth ability. Wild growth heals up to 5 friendly party or raid members. Imagine putting 5 rejuvenations out at once. It's completely insane. Also in Wrath, don't forget that Tree of Life is applied to the entire raid, so you give your entire raid 6% more healing received. You have a new skill called Nourish, which is an amazing ability to save people. Meanwhile, you still have the only combat res in the game and practically 0 mana issues in Wrath. That being said, Resto Druids do have a big downside, which is that HOTS, of course, have to be prepped in advance, just like in TBC. Meanwhile, your heals are going to get constantly sniped by Holy Paladins, by Resto Shamans. Pretty much everybody is going to snipe your heals. That being said, if you do know the fights back to front, you'll still have a chance to top the meters in some fights, just like in TBC. Restoration Druid gets an A. Next up, we have Discipline Priest. Discipline Priests prevent damage, and in general, this spec is way better than it was in TBC. In 25-mans, you're going to pump out your shields like crazy, and your new Penance ability as well. Penance is a massive new instant heal that ticks twice. Meanwhile, in 10-mans, you get to use old favorites like Prayer of Healing, your Renews, and of course, more flash healing. You also have Rapture as a talent now, which gives you 2.5% of your mana back when your shield is absorbed or dispelled. Don't forget you have Desperate Prayer as a great self-save heal, you have Pain Suppression to keep your tanks alive, and Power Infusion to pump up those fire mages. Disc Priest has the highest skill floor, aka they're the easiest healer. As long as you're pumping out those shields, you'll be doing a whole lot for your raid. The big downside of Disc Priest is that you don't have a lot of healing to catch up if your raid falls behind. There are going to be times in Wrath when you'll feel a lot stronger on Disc, particularly in 25-mans, and there are times in Wrath where you'll feel a whole lot stronger on Holy Priest. Imagine trying to top up your entire raid in Classic or TBC as a Disc Priest. That's just not a good feeling. Discipline Priests get an A. Now it's time to get into Holy Priest. Holy Priest in Wrath is very similar to Holy Priest in TBC. You have your Circle of Healing now on a 6-second cooldown to pump out those huge raid heals, and you can pump out Prayer of Mending for huge heals as well. Holy Priests can be absolute HPS machines, but you aren't bringing a lot unique to the table in terms of utility. Your Guardian Spirit is one big utility you have, and it's basically a tank saving ability. It increases the healing received by the target by 40%. You can basically just throw this ability on the tank and let your other healers deal with them while you pump up the raid with massive heals. Holy Priest is going to pump on some fights, while Disc is going to excel at others. In a 10-man, for example, Holy Priest is going to be outputting so much more healing than a Disc Priest. In 25-mans, your job is partially stolen by other options like the Resto Druids, so you'll want to be comfortable playing both specs. It's also worth noting that Holy Priest is considered the most difficult healer in Wrath due to the sheer number of healing options and spells you have. Ultimately, your toolkit is great, but you just don't get those huge buffs and changes that the rest of the specs got. This one hurts, but Holy Priest gets a B. Next up, we have Restoration Shamans. Shamans are both raid and tank healers in Wrath. They're middle of the pack at both tank and raid healing, but they make up for that with incredible utility. Of course, you have your totem buff to help the raid. You have your bloodlust or heroism for that massive 30% raid haste buff. You also have new abilities like Cleanse Spirit, which can decurse. You have a 10% physical damage reduction buff to give tanks after critical heals. You have your Earth Living Weapon as a huge plus healing weapon buff. And you even get Riptide, which is a little bit like Swift Mending from Druids. With Tidal Waves, you have a talent that buffs multiple heals in different ways, and you have to pick the right heal for the job. The skill ceiling of Restoration Shaman is very high due to the options that you have, second to only Holy Priest. Restoration Shaman gets an A. Before we get to the final healer in Wrath of the Lich King, please click on that subscribe button, give the video a like, and if you like content like this, please hit that notification bell so you can be notified when I next upload. Finally, it's time to talk about Holy Paladins. Holy Paladin is overpowered in Wrath of the Lich King. You have new monster abilities like Beacon of Light and Sacred Shield. Beacon of Light causes the target to become a beacon of light, so any heals you cast will also heal the Beacon of Light target. Double healing, baby, all the way. Holy Paladins are also an enormous beneficiary of the Glyph system. Glyph of Holy Light, for example, gives 5 friendly targets 10% of your Holy Light heals. Also, don't forget Divine Plea giving you 25% of your total mana back at the cost of reduced healing. You'll have almost no mana issues whatsoever. And finally, you get improvements to all sorts of spells, like Holy Shock has a 7.5 second cooldown. Lay on Hands reduces physical damage by 20% for 15 seconds. Basically, you're the best tank healer and a viable raid healer at the same time. And the skill floor for Holy Paladin is really high as well. This is the perfect healing class. Holy Paladin gets an S. One final note is that there just isn't as much massive AoE damage in these fights like there was in TBC, so Holy Paladin will benefit even more. That being said, this is a very balanced expansion. Every healer can work. Everyone has a fight they'll succeed at. There's really no wrong answer here. So by now, you should have a good idea of which healers are the strongest and weakest in Wrath. I want to know in the comments below, what healer do you think will be the weakest in Wrath? I would love to hear from you. I personally think it will be Holy Priest. Thanks so much for watching, and remember to have a great day. If you like this video, make sure to check out my Wrath of the Lich King DPS tier list. It'll tell you all of the highest DPS specs and classes in Wrath of the Lich King.